All right, let's take a look at how to assemble the universal cuff utensil holder. I've got a couple of them already assembled here, and your cuff may look different from these. You may not have a thumb rest. You may be mounting on the top side rather than the underside. Right, and then we have the utensil holders themselves. They can be designed in multiple different shapes depending on the kind of utensil you're going to be holding. And they can have closed ends on one side or the other, or they can be open throughout. And if they're round like this one, circular opening, then there will be a slot cut in the side as well to aid in fitting to some things that are otherwise a little tough to fit to. All right, so these two both have their utensil holder attached, and I did them both the same way I'm going to do this one. So this guy's going to go on top, and it could go this way or it could go this way. It really depends on personal preference. The dovetails line up. The dovetail on the utensil holder lines up with the slots on the cuff, and they slide into those two. Now that can be a little tight, especially because we're trying to work two dovetails at the same time. And you can get a little help from a friend to do that. If you find that it's really difficult to get these to go together, what I'd suggest is just take a small file, nice fine file, and widen the opening a little bit, or you can even file down the dovetails a little bit. But you want it to be fairly snug because you're going to be pushing on a utensil with this unit. You don't want these guys to come loose. But when it does come time to put them together, just get a piece of wood so that, well, actually you can start flat, but just get a piece of wood ready, and you can hear that you kind of wiggle them back and forth. They will go quite a ways together. But then gently, right above the dovetails, just go ahead and take them down until we're flat on one side, and then you'll have to bring out the piece of wood to raise it up a little bit, and a few more taps. Just check to see where you want to place this. You can place it toward the front of the cuff or toward the back. I'm going to just put this one right around in the middle. Alternate back and forth as you work it in until you're about where you want to be. Back one forward. Now in this case, I think we're pretty close here. You would reverse the process if you were taking them apart. Though the cuffs are inexpensive enough to print that I would just print one for every one of the utensil holders that I want to use. Now, how do you mount the utensil in the utensil holder? Well, this one's going to be pretty straightforward. We have a typical bamboo mixing spoon, and since the utensil holder, well, since the cuff goes on my hand, in this case this way, I'm going to want to just stir things in this fashion. Hard to see on the screen here. I'm going to be inserting the handle from this side, and it's going to go all the way through both of these little grips, and that's why I want to have it open on this side, on this outside here. So just push it in till it's right about where I want it. We're ready to stir. Now I have two other utensils. I have a fork here, similar idea with a spoon, and a knife, and they have to be held in different orientations. So the fork will be held horizontally, but the knife will be held vertically. So this sort of opening is appropriate for the knife because we want to keep it vertical. And we're kind of closed at the back for extra stability. And we'll just work it in from the front. And that's how it will sit in the utensil holder. Now we can see there's a fair amount of movement here because the front of the knife is thinner, well, I should say isn't as high as the back of the knife. So there's going to be some movement here, and we'll address that with a wedge. In this case, we're putting a fork inside the utensil holder here. It's a fairly tight fit, so I'm actually going to wiggle it a little bit to get it in there. Goes all the way into the back till you almost hear the little click back there. And it's got a solid back end to it, so the fork always has something to push against. And that's fairly stable, but I could tighten that up as well with a wedge. So let's start with looking at wedges. So I printed all of these black wedges in a flexible filament, and this green wedge is printed in plain PLA, which is fairly rigid. For the fork, I'm just going to take one of these wedges here and let me push it in from the front. Let's push it in from the front here. And I just want to wedge it in place. Now, fork doesn't move to side like it did before. For the knife, we have a fairly large gap in here. I can take this thing, again on its side is a good way to do it. Just force it in there, and now the knife is pretty rigid. Put it further in. And I could do the same with a flexible material as well. So that's how wedges are used.